with our finance team as well. And I also have Kevin Johnson with Stoll Reeves, a partner that's going to talk about the legality behind our ordinance changes. Claire, if you could run this slide. Oh, clicker, you got the clicker. Okay. Okay. So the reasons for the ordinance change is the 2007 acceptable waste delivery agreement extension wasn't accepted. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here today. Also, a number of the Class A licenses are being underutilized. We have business consolidation in the industry, and we recently and for a while have received complaints from residents and businesses about the lack of choices and competition. And then also we have an issue with the bulky item collection and haulers collecting and transporting mixed municipal solid waste, or also known as junk haulers. The reason, the major proposed changes are removing the Class A license, the attrition language. So every time a license is removed or bought out, that license goes away. And so that's one thing that we want to change in the ordinance. Also reestablishing the number back up to 12 that we had prior in the 2006 ordinance, and then creating a Class C roll-off license, limiting them to 8. And then creating a Class D license for the junk haulers. And then also just some minor changes in the fee schedule that Cammie will go over. The Class A licenses, what we're talking about with Class A is they provide a full array of solid waste services, from municipal solid waste collection to industrial waste, recyclables, bulky items, infectious waste if they're permitted by the MPCA. And so as it shows, examples of collection containers include curbside containers, dumpsters, roll-offs, and compactor boxes. And again, we want to limit those to 12. Back in 2006, this was the ordinance. We have the number of licenses at 12, and we want to reset that back to the 12 licenses. And in the red box, we had the attrition language that removed the license every time a licensed hauler bought out another licensed hauler. So this is just an example of the update. So it'd be Solid Waste Management Ordinance 3504.02, subsection 1A, reestablishing it to 12. The Class A license updates, again, we talked about the attrition language and return it back to 12. Why? The reasons why is insurance competition provides waste generators more hauling options, follows precedent at the 2006 ordinance, and limits the number of Class A licensed haulers to ensure compliance. So just in 2023, the application process, we're going to grandfather the existing Class A licensed haulers in. In the event that we have receive more than 12 applications during our licensing deadline from October to December 1st, we'll have a point system in place that looks at the types of waste collected, the types of equipment, the customers served, and the geographic areas. And then any ties will be determined by a request for information process. Then in 2024, another application process is in place that in the event we receive more than 12 license applications, the point system involves that points will be awarded to the hauler that currently holds an A license, and then the same procedures as we did before, with the exception, as you can see in the bottom point bullet, is that a collection service standard of 100 tons of mixed municipal solid waste delivered to county facilities. And then again, ties would be through an RFI process. The Class B haulers, we had no changes to this. This is people that are hauling food scraps, and we made this change back in the spring. And so we're not proposing any changes to that. And you can see it's unlimited licenses available in the Class B for food scrap and organic pickup. The Class C category, this is a new license category. This is for roll-off and compactors. These collection services provide roll-off and compactor box solid waste collection services. The example of transportation vehicles would be roll-off trucks plus roll-off trailers. And so we're proposing limiting this to 8 because the Class A license holders would already be in the roll-off business. So we'd be increasing the number of roll-off businesses to 20, and that's why we're limiting it to 8. The Class C licenses provides opportunity to collect and transport mixed municipal waste, providing roll-off and compactor services. Again, limits to 8. ensures competition for roll-off services in the community, and limits the number of Class C haulers to ensure compliance. And again, we have a maximum of 20 in the roll-off business. Starting in 2023, the Class C license applications, we'd go through the same process of the Class A. Remember that, as I said, that some of the Class A licenses are being underutilized. So this would be an opportunity if Class A license holders just want to do Class C roll-off. And some of them, are in that business already, and there's an opportunity for them if they want to for a license available in Class C. Again, the type of waste collected, and then we do, the last bullet, we do have a performance standard, or excuse me, a collection service standard of 10 tons of MMSW delivered to our county facilities as a requirement. And then if we have a tie through this application process, it'd be an RFI.
Right. And that 10-ton, excuse me, but that 10-ton requirement is just to make sure that somebody doesn't hold a license so that somebody else can't buy it.
Correct. Yeah, but so that the people are active in the business.
They actually have to be using it.
Yeah, they have to be using the license because right now, we have a couple that are holding on to them and that aren't very limited activity in the hauling business. So we want to ensure that there's more activity.
You're saying like Class A, that if consolidation occurs, the number remains at 8.
So we'd always keep the number. We're going to try to keep the number at 12. And so
12 for Class
Class
A
C.
or
Yeah,
Class C,
sorry.
same thing.
Sorry,
occurs,
yeah,
right?
sorry, Commissioner Brown.
Got it.
Yeah. So this is the Class D hauler license, is a new license category. This is for bulky item collection and cleanup services. And so these are for the businesses, that are much needed in this community, that go into the building or a house and take the waste out, use their vehicle and transport it. And so those, we want to create a license for them as well. Right now, it's unlimited, and I'll get in the reasons why. The reason why the licenses are required, if you can get the next slide, Cammie, no, you're fine, is that Minnesota statutes 115A, 0.93 subdivision 1 requires companies that collect MMSW to be licensed. And right now they're registered, and so we want to make sure that they are licensed in the community for hauling mixed municipal solid waste. Again, the reason why state statute also provides license to collect and transport mixed municipal solid waste. And like right now, I said that most of them are registered, and so they're under registration. They're not allowed to transport mixed municipal solid waste without a license. So that's what we're trying to clean up. Allows individuals and small businesses to get their start in the collection and transportation of solid waste. So we see that these Class D is a foothold, and that's why it's not limited, is that there's an opportunity for small business or a person to get into solid waste hauling, and if they want to move up into the different classes. Hauling equipment in the segment is not as extensive as the A, B, and C, and so that's another reason why in the Minnesota Department of Revenue considers them self-haulers, the Class D, because they're aggregating the waste. They're going into the business or household, they're aggregating the waste, they're putting in their vehicles, whereas A, B, and C, that person that has that service is aggregating the waste. They're putting it in a container or dumpster. And again, it requires less enforcement, so the county service charge is not collected at the disposal. The county service charge is collected at the disposal facilities, so they're not invoicing their customers. Yep.
Okay.
Cammie's going to take
On
over.
to the financial piece of this. We are proposing to increase some licensing fees and then add some licensing fees. So obviously, since we're adding 2 new classes of licenses, we need to add a fee for those. And then since we're increasing the Class A back up to 12, there's going to be more work to be done to license these individuals. So we're asking for some fee changes, and that's on the next slide. So in the middle, you can see the previous rate. That's what we have currently. So Class A right now is at $100. It's been like that since before 2007. And we're suggesting changing it up to $1,000. There's multiple departments in this licensing licensing process, and this will just cover some of that cost that we haven't been covering. Class B, like Tony said, we just instituted this one earlier this year, but we're raising the license fee up to $300. And then Class D and Class C, we're adding a fee, and just an estimate of what it might cost to do the licensing for that. So that's what we have there. And then also, we are proposing a tip fee change. So we are asking for a $1 per ton tip fee increase starting 1/1/23. So that would go from $83 to $84 a ton. Along with all of these new licenses and increasing that Class A back up to 12, there's going to be additional staff time educating the new haulers, the current haulers, keeping everybody on a unified playing field. We're going to have a little bit increased monitoring, and we're going to have to continue our auditing and inspections. Enforcing or helping with the ordinance is just going to be a little bit harder than with the agreement. So we want to have dedicated staff time to be available to have open communication with the haulers in a timely manner, and to get everybody the same message. That's going to be really important to keep everybody educated there. And then these next 5 slides is all of the proposed changes that we're asking to make. So everything in red is a proposed change. Anything is black is something that's staying the same.
Can I ask a question about the fees before we go on
Yeah.
to this? So if I'm understanding correctly, if you have a Class A license and you pay $1,000, then you don't have to have a Class C license. It's automatically covered.
Included in that A.
All right, great. Just want to make sure I understood that.
Yep. So in summary, I wasn't going to go through the detail of these. If you guys had questions, we can answer that. But in summary, all of these changes, there's the $1 per ton tip fee increase. We are adding Class D fees to both the OWF rate schedule and the CalMAR schedule. And then at OCRC and Hasways, there's just some staff recommended changes that the staff feels would be necessary. All of the changes would go into effect on January 1st, 2023, except for anything related to service charge and OCRC. So they would go into effect on March 1st, 2023. We need a little more time to advertise those. Do you have any specific questions on
Yeah,
these?
question. The $1 per ton increase is to cover our costs for a position?
Correct, thank you, yes.
And what will that position do?
What would they do?
Yeah, so that position would, like Cami said, provide education going out, because some of these haulers will be new, providing education, technical assistance, and so, and then monitoring.
Right.
And then we do also do auditing of the haulers, and that position would help with auditing.
So in a sense, that position is also protection for the people that are licensed to make sure that everybody follows the same rules. And if they're not, then we'll do something about that so that they also have to be licensed. Okay, thanks.
Right. All right.
So just the last piece of our presentation, I want to introduce Kevin Johnson with Stowe Reeves, and he's just going to talk about, he reviewed the current ordinance and just talk about the legality of it. And Kevin might be a familiar face because he helped with the 2007 waste delivery agreement with the haulers. So Kevin, you just want to come up and...
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. Kevin Johnson. I'm an attorney with Stowe Reeves Law Firm up in Minneapolis. And I focus on environmental and solid waste issues. I've been doing that since dating back to the 1980s. And as Tony mentioned, I was involved in advising the county back in 2007 on the contracts. And I've been helping out the county attorney's office and the staff on this go around with the ordinance amendments, and just point out that when it comes to the licensing changes that are being proposed, the authority for the county to do licensing is in Chapter 400. It's the overall solid waste management statute for counties. And the authority is very broad and provides you with a great deal of latitude in setting up the ordinance and making the amendments. And happy to answer any questions.
Great.
Thank
Far
you.
so good. Thank you.
Thank you. That's as far as the presentation.
I have one more question for you. So, household solid waste that's in the bins outside on the curb that are picking up, how many of those would you have to pick up to make a ton? I know that's a wild guess on your
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
How many? 1,000? 500?
Well, that would be $2 per thing, or £2 per thing, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask
Yeah.
is because I want the people to understand that the impact to them when we raise it $1 a ton is negligible per household.
Right.
Would you
Yeah.
say that that's accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so now we come to the public hearing portion, so I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is open, so anybody would like to speak for or against this proposed change to the ordinance, now's your chance. Anybody like to speak for or against this? Third time, anybody like to speak for or against this?
Move close public hearing.
Second.
Okay. Comments, thoughts, motions?
I moved to.
Well, first you gotta vote on closing the public.
Oh, we gotta vote on closing, huh? Let's screw it up.
I thought we did. We didn't. You're right.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries.
To
Now,
approve.
Second.
any discussion?
This chair.
Matt, let's take a Matt first.
I want to compliment Cammy and Tony and staff.
Yep.
Some of us were here, original one, and I believe there was people all the way out to the parking lot. Now, I don't know if any of our waste people are here. Thank you for the communication that you did on this. Obviously, it went real smooth. I think we run a great organization out there, and I got to compliment the staff.
Partnership. Yeah. Continues to be. Thank you.
Nice
I
work.
wanted to speak to the same point, but I don't need to reiterate, but well done, our staff.
Yep.
And the fact that we have people here supporting the work that you've put in and obviously been communicating well. And I think having the various kinds of licensure classifications makes sense. And having our revenue be directed by the volume of business makes sense as well. So I'm very well done.
Okay, nothing else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Carries. Thank you. Nice work. All right, we have one more public hearing. It's Olmsted County Zone Change O-2022-001 ZC by Virginia Wright Peterson. Request is rezone 10 acres from A3 to RA. Anybody like to speak on this? All right. Oh,
Good morning. I'm Mark Engel with the Planning Department. Christy Ghost would typically be here today. She's out of the office, so you get my face instead.
there you go.
So yes,
We
we are.
get the backup.
What's that?
Backup.
Yeah, backup. I'm the backup for today. Sure. So we are here to talk about O-2022-001 ZC. And the applicant is Virginia Wright Peterson. The property location is the southwest one quarter of the northwest one quarter of Section 11 in Marion Township. It's right along 60th Avenue Southeast, identified in the white box on the screen. And the request is to do a zone change from A3, the agricultural district, to RA, rural residential district. This came before you as a land use plan amendment, and the zone change was anticipated. The rural residential district allows for low-density residential developments that do not exceed one dwelling unit for 5 acres. We don't have a lot of rural residential in the area, but that is exactly what the applicant is looking for. They have approximately 10 acres, and they're looking to add one single-family residential home. As noted, the current zoning district is A3, and note that there on the west side of 60th Avenue, there is single-family residential. There's a little bit of single-family just to the south of this site, but there's some rural residential just a little farther south. The balance of the green on the site is also A3 zoning. The land use designation is suburban development, which this board approved in September of this year. There are a number of findings that need to be made. Staff believes that these findings have been met. I'll just run through these 5 just to be on the record. The property is consistent with the policies of the Olmsted County General Land Use Plan. The amendment is in the public interest. The proposed development is timely based on the surrounding land uses, proximity to development, and availability of infrastructure. The proposed permits land use that are compatible with the adjacent zonings or land uses, and the proposal is not spot zoning. We always bring this slide forward to kind of show you where they are in the process. In this particular case, there's a 3-step process. At other subdivisions of land, there may be multiple steps up to a 5-step process. This particular site fit into a category where we had the land use plan amendment, which brought it to suburban development. We're currently in the zoning district amendment process. And then this site, because it's splitting it into 2 parcels, meets the criteria to use a meets and bounds subdivision, which is a staff level approval. So we won't be coming back before you with a final plat. This is probably the way our zoning ordinance and land use is structured, one of the easiest ways to get to a subdivision. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 6th. They recommended unanimously to approve the zoning district amendment. They recommended to the county board to approve the zoning district amendment from A3 to the RA Rural Residential District. And that is my presentation. I can take any questions.
Questions?
Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. Can you make a motion to open?
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's public hearing. Would anybody like to speak for or against this? Odds are looking not just good. Anybody like to speak for or against this? Third, final time. Would anybody like to speak for or against this?
Move to close the public hearing.
You get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Questions, motions?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
There's Virginia Ray Peterson right there.
Happy homeowner.
Happy.
Getting close. All right. Now we go to the consent agenda. Approve the October 18th minutes. Approve a gambling permit for the Stewartville Sportsman's Club. Approve disposition of public housing properties.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, discussion decision items. First up, Administrator Showcase Physical Development.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm Pete Eason, Deputy Administrator with Physical Development Division. I have the honor to introduce this month's showcase, the Administrator Showcase, and it's going to be recognizing our physical development support staff. So I'm going to ask them all to come up here. They may be surprised at this, but please come up. I just have a few words to say. This is a great group of staff, and January of this year, we combined support staff from several different departments into one team to really leverage their strengths and expertise to help each other to support. We have 7 different departments in physical development with over 250 staff, but it's a wide, diverse set of departments, from parks to environmental resources, public works, soil and water. So it's been a challenge, and change is always difficult, but they stepped up and are working together and have done a lot already in the 10 months that they've been formed as a team. I just want to share a couple facts or things they've taken on. They've combined and used our Ring Central phone technology in ways that we've not done before, where they can cover each other and answer all the calls, and they get about 100 to 120 calls a day.
Wow.
From recycling questions, parks questions, well, septic, and building permit questions, to all the way to what do you do with a dead deer when you find it on the road. So there isn't a question they haven't answered. and they created an online tool to help answer those frequently asked questions. So they have that developed, and it's quickly being used across other areas of the county as well. So it's really leveraging the technology and providing an excellent service. One other thing I wanted to share is they have a lot of software and expertise in helping us with our behind the scenes computer work. So that whether it's purchase orders and using our new hub system to automate the purchase orders that we do in building projects, or the campground online reservations to help support some of that. Again, the building and well and septic permits. So they have all of that, much of behind the scenes work that is just keeps the operation going. There's one big one that some of you see, some of you don't see, but they support 6 different advisory boards and commissions in physical development, plus the physical development committee. So there's all the behind the scenes work to help us with our software, putting the agendas together, doing the minutes, and keeping us all in line to help us be organized. This group has expertise in that. So with that, I just wanted to highlight some of the work they do. Hand it over to Sue Struckman, who leads this team. She may have a few words, and we'll introduce the staff.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sue Struckman, Support Services Supervisor with Physical Development.
Sue, could you put the microphone up a little?
Thank you. Sure. I always thought I talked loud.
You must be intimidated by it.
I just want to say a few words. Well, I'll introduce the staff first. And if you guys could just step forward when I mention your names, I'd appreciate it, so they know who you are, even though I think you probably do. Jen Garness, Executive Support Supervisor for Planning. Beth Davis, Administrative Assistant 3 for Planning. Stephanie Krukenberg, Executive Assistant for Planning. We will also be filling another position in that area, and we are Sarah Borges will be our Administrative 2. Facilities, Building Operations, and PRL, Wendy Fenton, Executive Assistant. Public Works, Environmental Resources, Parks, and Soil and Water Conservation, Jessica Postelnik, Executive Assistant. Monica Hansen, Administrative Assistant 2, and Kaylee Post, Administrative Assistant 2. These individuals have worked hard as a team to support 7 departments and over 200 employees within the Physical Development Division. They have come together to collaborate on how to support all the departments. They are passionate about their work and work hard for the organization, the citizens of Olmsted County, and their internal customers. I am proud of them and the work that they have accomplished in a small amount of time that they have begun their collaboration together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. As soon as they get settled there. So I want to thank Sue Struckman. Thank you for your supervision and for your staff, because your people that are in those offices are often the first opportunity that the public has to make an opinion of Olmsted County. And that's why when you answer the phone, I was surprised, 100 to 120 calls a day. When you answer the phone and you provide the answer, or at least get the person connected with somebody who can answer the question, that reflects well on all of us sitting up here. So you're helping not only that person, but you're helping the county do its good work. And I do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We will now move on to the Human Trafficking Prevention Pilot.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. My name is Shagar Chowdhury. I'm an Associate Director of Olmsted County Public Health. With me today, I have Katie Hackman from Environmental Health and Andrea White, our Regional Safe Harbor Navigator. All right, so what we're presenting today is an exciting initiative coming out of the Olmsted County Human Trafficking Task Force. It's around massage establishments and an inspection process that we hope is much more collaborative, preventative, and victim-centered. To start things off, I'm going to pass the buck off to Andrea White here to kind of speak to human trafficking in Olmsted County.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us. If we could go forward one slide. We wanted to start off with giving a picture of what our work currently looks like in addressing human trafficking out of Olmsted County in our Victim Services Office. We do have a specific program under Safe Harbor where we offer case management services. We help in developing protocol and really just impacting our system's response to this issue. Last year, from October 2021 to 2022 of October, you can see up here we served 184 clients specifically for that of human trafficking, and then that's broken down in the pie chart to the right on the slide. So we are currently serving this population. We understand through some of the cases we've already worked where some of the pitfalls lie, and this process has been put forth to really address some of those.
Say a few words about how you identify these people. I mean, it's got to be difficult to some degree, right?
Yeah, so I think one of the best strengths that we have is our Safe Harbor program is embedded in Victim Services, which is our sexual assault response agency. When we look at the spectrum of sexual violence, we can understand that exploitation and trafficking lie right alongside instances of sexual assault, right? We have multiple forms of victimizations that are co-occurring in that moment. In terms of identifying, the two grants that we receive for our Safe Harbor program, one is my position under the Regional Navigator, and the second is our case management services. So my position is really there to increase that system response, that education, really working with different disciplines in a multidisciplinary response to increase that responsivity. We do have a risk assessment tool that was created out of our office back in 2014 in a multidisciplinary, it was the SUI work group out of child welfare and child protection services with corrections and victim services. We took research, we collaborated, and really said this is something that every provider community member can be looking for. Oftentimes we don't necessarily receive a disclosure, right? The language that we use to identify might be different than those that we're working with. So really understanding the risks and knowing what to look for is what we rely on. And a lot of the folks that we serve may never disclose that they're a trafficking victim, but our services are still there.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Moving forward to the next slide, please. Oh.
So this graphic here is just something that we wanted to include. This is an additional slide from our HCOM presentation, and this is from Hayrick Research. We have received, the individuals that you'll learn about have received training from this entity, and one of the common spaces online that is used to share different postings of individuals is on Rub Maps. You can see that there under the graphic, and this really displays how abundant illicit massage parlors are in our country. So this comes from some recent research out of February of 2020 from them, and you can see that we're very much included in that map.
All right, so through Safe Harbor, a multidisciplinary licensing work group was formed in an effort to create a more collaborative approach that would have a greater impact on human trafficking mitigation in our community. In order to curb the number of instances that are occurring, we really need to be utilizing a public health lens. In coming together, we identified two areas that needs to be addressed. The first being disproportionality. So currently, most massage establishments that are reported on are typically Asian massage businesses. And this creates a public perception that human trafficking is primarily occurring among the Asian population. And in reality, anyone can be a victim. So this disproportionality needs to be addressed. It is our hope with a more collaborative approach that we can provide a more all-encompassing and intersectional lens. The second area that needs to be addressed is how cases come in. Historically, complaints land in either the city clerk or city attorney's office, which is then forwarded on to the Rochester Police Department or RPD for follow-up. An individual that's being trafficked is currently identified through a formal sting operation that is conducted by the RPD. And this can be a very time-consuming and labor-intensive process that can feel very criminalizing to the victims, and in turn cause more trauma to the very individuals that we are trying to open doors for. It's our hope to create a more supportive approach, and by doing that collaboratively, would also better allocate staff resources and capacity, and this would be for both the city and the county.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about the old approach. This is kind of common practice in Minnesota and kind of throughout the nation. So current practice with massage establishments generally is an inspection is conducted at the start of the opening of the massage establishment. The focus really being again on just building safety aspects, things like that. After that initial licensing occurs, the inspection process is really based off of complaint basis. So if a complaint comes in, like we spoke to, it usually gets forwarded to a city clerk's office, a city attorney's office, and then forwarded to local law enforcement. As we all know, law enforcement is fairly tapped, so setting up the observation needed at these units, the inspections, the sting operations, is very, very labor intensive. And then also the court proceedings for criminal charges, things of that nature can span over years of service while that establishment is still being able to operate. So again, in terms of time intensive, just in kind of the scope of our community, you're looking at the Sheriff's Office and the Southeast Minnesota Violent Crime Task Force. You're looking at the Rochester Police Department. You're looking at Victim Services. So just a lot of organizations involved in those sting operations, and then very much a high attention event like we spoke to that doesn't really separate the victim from the operation and the trafficking itself, and it's bringing them together and kind of re-victimizing, as we spoke to. For just kind of a gauge, just in the city of Rochester alone, we have 36 massage establishments within the city limits. So, next slide, please. So what we're here to propose is a new approach. It was one that I utilized in the city of St. Cloud as when I served as their assistant health director. The problem arose with the Central Human Trafficking Task Force in St. Cloud that law enforcement and legal were having difficulties around massage establishments in particular, and how to handle those trafficking cases. Again, with the labor intensivity and the lack of resources to truly address the issue, we were looking for a new approach. So they came to us as the city because we were the licensing entity, and we came up with a new collaborative approach. We decided to create a routine inspection process, no different than what you would see in terms of restaurant inspections, hotel inspections. We do them on a yearly basis here in Olmsted County. It was the same in the city of St. Cloud as well. And we wanted to create a preventative service opposed to a reactionary based service. So again, with the complaint basis, a lot of times, again, we're reacting to a complaint if we have the ability to. This prevention method creates a routine inspection basis, which is much more equitable in nature because all establishments are getting inspected on a regular basis. It also allows us to address complaints in a much more timely fashion, as we could go out to those inspections and use kind of our public health inspection process for those. This process utilized forensic lights, testing kits, and then just specific training that we received from the Central Minnesota Human Trafficking Task Force to identify potential trafficking issues, but also illicit activity occurring at these massage establishments. So We utilized also our partners in the trafficking task force, social workers, etc., to help provide the victims with the services that they need, but also kind of expeditedly be able to address the illicit business itself. So through the licensing, we were able to either suspend, revoke, or deny a renewal of a licensed establishment and prevent them from operating that illicit operation well, we would take that back and we could determine if criminal charges were needed or provide victims with services. So it really separated into kind of three pathways: the immediate stop of the business and preventing other businesses from operating within the county limits for these illicit operations, but then also providing victims with services, and then if the need was there, for criminal charges for trafficking. So again, this was a very collaborative approach. We utilized a multidisciplinary approach through our task force. So we had law enforcement, we had legal. We're lucky enough to have victim services also be able to provide support too, and then public health would be involved here as well. So just to speak again to the procedure a little bit, we would go into facilities on a routine yearly basis or a complaint basis. We inspect for sanitation, licensure, making sure therapists are certified. We would also be, again, using forensic lighting that identified bodily fluids. So in this case, it would be seminal fluids and things of that nature. We would have test kits that would positively identify those samples. And then we would use that as a backing essentially for illicit activity occurring in those establishments, along with identifying a couple other areas where we can kind of take a look in the next slide. I think there's some pictures. So these are just some examples in the city of St. Cloud that we would see on a very regular basis. We had roughly 24 establishments in St. Cloud, and roughly a third were identified as illicit in nature. These proceedings were challenged in administrative hearings, and every time we were, our findings were confirmed essentially, and we were sided with by the hearing officers. So just some examples that you'll see. You'll notice kind of the staining when in that center picture. That's kind of what we are looking for with the forensic lighting. It identifies this particular spectrum. You actually have eye gear that shows that spectrum utilizing the forensic lighting. We'd identify sample areas, floors, walls, ceilings, linens, you name it. We would find it. And yes, I said ceilings as well. We would look at sleeping areas, so we would have clear-cut signs of trafficking where there's sleeping areas, full kitchens, luggage, children's shoes, you name it. We would see all sorts of stuff. So next slide. So I'm going to have, I think this is you. So I'm going to pass it back to Andrea.
So as we look to implement these changes, we wanted to talk about how we can really serve and give the full attention to that response. So we do have our human trafficking task force in Olmsted County that is facilitated by Victim Services, and this would really be utilized to pull together that multidisciplinary team that's been able to collaborate and build up this response to then come together when we have someone that's been flagged, right? So if we have the inspection, we have law enforcement, Victim Services, that team together to say, like, what's our next steps? How are we going to address this? And then, what needs to be followed up on. So we're going to be utilizing the task force. This will also be written in our protocol that we're undertaking to respond in a multidisciplinary lens to human trafficking. And we're really excited to have this approach. Many of our partners are excited to have that opportunity to have some less time-intensive operations how we've currently done it. So there will be oversight and collaboration in the months and years to come, hopefully, on this issue. Next slide. All right, any questions?
So I'm curious about, are the inspections going to be announced? Are they going to be scheduled? Are they unannounced inspections?
They'll be unannounced in nature, Commissioner.
And so as a condition of licensure for the city of Rochester, the organization has to agree that they will accept unannounced inspections?
Yep, their current ordinance actually states that an agent of the city or a representative can inspect the operation at any time. So it is embedded in their ordinance that within reasonable business hours, I guess I should say. But
The
that
business
is,
hours of a massage parlor are usually more flexible, shall we say? than a
yes,
lot of
their
other
hours
businesses.
can vary quite a bit. But yeah, we are able to inspect based off of the current ordinance. So we could go during any normal business operating hours.
So what's the inspection team?
Yep. So the inspection team would be based out of our environmental health unit in public health.
So would there be someone from Victim Services or Safe Harbors accompanying the public health inspector?
Yep. So especially for our initial training, and kind of through the first few initial processes, we are gonna bring Victim Services along with us to help train our eye for it, but also to help them understand our process. The big thing here, I think, to also recognize is like we will go on site, and we will bring that back to the task force to determine like next steps of action. So I don't. Environmental health, like as a discipline, won't make that call on their own, but we'll look to law enforcement, legal, victim services, and we'll kind of make a coordinated approach based off of that inspection.
So you'll inspect, determine that it appears that this is illicit activities going on, and then notify Victim Services and notify law enforcement?
So yep, we would notify our task group. Essentially, we would have a response team from our task force for it.
So then how do you, what's the opportunity then what's the consequence to the business and what's the consequence to the actors?
One thing that I think maybe will be beneficial to highlight is in our old process, very much the victims were the ones who were up against the initial response, right? And so we really want to take that focus away and focus on buyers and traffickers, because our buyers are the ones that fuel this demand, right? And so understanding that this isn't something we're going to allow in our community. I do want to recognize as well that the county attorney's office has been an amazing partner. Ariana Whitney and Michael Walters have given their insight throughout this, and they're also right in this response to give their legal perspective as we're handling this response. So we want to make sure our victims are not being pushed into the system, and rather we're focusing on those traffickers and those buyers. But I do want to recognize you had another question too, Commissioner.
So in terms of the enforcement aspect, so it would be through the licensure. So again, the goal would be to immediately stop the illicit operation from occurring. So through the licensure, the city has multiple avenues. It could either deny renewal. So if it's close toward end of year, that would probably be the route that they would go. Others, they could suspend until we determine next course of action. Otherwise, if in a severe case, they could revoke license. So that would stop the operation kind of immediately while we also provide services to kind of the victims.
So for other environmental health issues, we charge fees that reimburse our costs up to about 75-80%. Are we prepared to do that for these inspections as well?
All costs will be reimbursed by the city. Yep.
By the city directly.
Yep.
Now this is a county ordinance, but we keep talking about the city. Is it just in the city of Rochester that will be enforcing this?
Currently, it's a city ordinance, and it would just be right now piloting in the city of Rochester. The hope would be to expand this out if possible, but this is kind of this is a pilot approach in our community. So
okay. In St. Cloud, how did you see these illicit businesses react to this? What was their next move to avoid this?
So, I mean, a lot of times they would try to open up an establishment within the community, but when they were determined to be running an illicit operation, essentially there is usually a 10-year hold on them being able to open a massage establishment. The city of Rochester has a very similar ordinance with that nature in it. So it's really just they're trying to find avenues to reopen and kind of start their operations, because these are very large money makers for them, right? And we're trying to stop those areas that they can open up. So again, the hope would be to expand this within our entire community to kind of create a safety net around Olmsted County. So that was a similar process in St. Cloud. We started in St. Cloud and we moved to the surrounding cities, so Sartell, Sauk Rapids, things like that. So,
And have you conferred with the sheriff's department as well?
in terms of the process,
In terms of the process, yeah.
I guess through this task force, yes. I haven't spoken like directly with the sheriff.
I just want to make sure they're engaged with the task force overall. Okay.
So in St. Cloud, do they consider this program a success? They've noticed less activity?
Yeah, absolutely. On a side note, I won Program of the Year in terms of in the state for the process. Several letters from Chief of Police of recommendations for the program because again, the resources that are needed to go into those operations and to be doing surveillance on these operations just it wasn't feasible for law enforcement because often the task forces that were assigned to the massage establishments and trafficking were also dealing with drug issues within the community, violent. They were part of the violent task force as well. So this freed up a lot of space for them as well, and then allowed the problem to still be addressed.
I have a question then. So when you say that there's a 10-year hiatus on their being able to open, does that mean just within the community of St. Cloud that they could do something outside of that community?
Yeah.
So actually would be great to put this on a state level, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that was often a talking point for us. It would be great if there were state level.
Do you think there's any chance that might happen?
There has been some discussion, especially around like the requirements around massage therapists, licensure, and things like that. There's not like a state recognized or national recognized certifying agency, I guess.
Okay.
So there is some talk around that, but the hope would be again, other local jurisdictions would adopt a similar ordinance and we could kind of expand this process across the board.
So by a local, could it become county-wide? So there could be whole counties. That might be a little easier than the statewide, I suppose.
Yep, and I think we have been recommended, like through our public health liaison from the state, to present this process, like to our local public health group. As again, this is a problem not just for large cities, but very much for rural areas and things like that too. So just highlighting that this process can be, again, resource effective and very efficient in nature. So.
Are we going to reach out to the small communities, the Odas, the Storevilles, to let them know what Rochester is doing?
That'd be my hope, yes.
Okay. All right, is this a decision item or just a discussion item?
This is a decision to move forward, yep.
Okay. Consider.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Carries. Thank you. Good
Thank
work,
you.
guys. You bet. Okay. All right, before we get to board and committee reports, we have 2 volunteers to consider.
Yeah, move to approve Nancy McCoy for Public Health Services and Joanne Horniker for Human Services Advisory Board.
Okay, can I get a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right, board committee report. Start, Matt.
Nothing, Mark, no.
Sheila.
Commissioner Wright and I attended the District 9 Association of Minnesota Counties meetings yesterday in beautiful downtown Crescent, Minnesota. It was actually a beautiful drive into the sunrise. There were a few things that I thought, and I'm sure Commissioner Wright has more detailed notes than I took, but I was struck with the number of counties that are looking at building county detention facilities. There's at least 4 counties in our region that are in the process of building. At least one of them talked about the impact it had, the debt service on their levy. I think it's Fillmore County, or was it Rice County's a 10% levy increase. A lot of it's through their debt service. It just struck me that we're at a place that so many counties are looking to do that. Common issues around recruitment of personnel. um, wide range of levy increases were kind of more toward the middle. There was the AMC staff presented a lot of concern about cybersecurity overall, and calling out some resources that AMC has contracting with and NACO, the national level, around cybersecurity. They're feeling that counties are particularly vulnerable, and there were some examples of some fishing expeditions, even with the AMC staff that they were able to permeate the boundaries. So heightened focus on cybersecurity, and then some new contracts that EMC has for listing of tax forfeited sales and budget cycle management, and a program that helps you look at your cash flow at the county level. Many of these things, I think we probably have enough sophistication in our staff, but for the counties, the smaller counties particularly can be very, very helpful. So it was, I think it was a productive meeting. It's always good to hear a little bit about what's happening in our region and what some of the concerns are of our adjoining counties. So it was, I think that's the strongest focus of the report I would make today, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Greg?
Yeah, let me just add a few things. Um, Commissioner Cascaden also pointed out to the group and led the discussion that our region is very important in making sure that we help the legislature understand that we do need some modernization in the public health division. She spoke very eloquently towards revising the SHAC committees, as well as the human services division at the state, because they are far behind. There are certain things that we got waivers on that is not spread to the rest of the counties, and that's data sharing. So that one division can't even look at another division's data to put it together to come up with more efficiency. So hopefully we'll have some impact on that. And of course, Sheila is on those committees, which is very helpful. And I do believe that the rest of the counties look towards Olmsted County to providing that force and that leadership in those areas to get it done, because everybody's helped by the fact that Olmsted County is present in those discussions. And then the other one is that most of the counties are also doing a wage survey very similar to what Olmsted County is doing, and they're also finding out that their wages are anywhere from 2 to 3% below the market rate. So that's partly also why their levies are pretty high in order to equalize those. And they also found out that the areas of the lowest wages, the entry level, is where they need the most work. Very similar to what we found in Olmsted County. So in order for us to keep competitive, we have to keep ahead of that, because all the counties are going to be competing basically for the same people. So, very good. It was a good meeting. It's always good to get together with District 9, share those kinds of things, and let them know what Olmsted County is doing.
Great, thank you. Stephanie, you want to start?
Sure, I just wanted to let you all know that I've been serving on the library board this year, and there's an issue about banned books, and the library board unanimously passed a resolution that they believe in intellectual freedom, and there will be no books banned at our library, and there is an appeal process if you think a book ought to be banned. Which will end up with the library board if it makes it through 2 steps. So I was very proud of our library board that there was just no question about supporting intellectual freedom.
Good.
Great, thank you, Jim.
Nope.
Chase, for one. It's got a short one. We had kind of the initial meeting of our new combined youth group, which would be Royce, Rochester, Olmsted Youth Council. And we'll have a meeting coming up here in November, if I remember right, Lisa? Okay. And so far, so good. Today's quote is based on the elections, which are thankfully just a week away. Yes. This is by American novelist T. Raphael Semino. The greatest threats to democracy are comfort and apathy.
All right.
I'll get a motion.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, though.
What are you doing in Seattle?
Jimmy bought a house, painting, electrical, plumbing.
Yeah, you your license and all that.
Reading Friday and Saturday.